Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am your host, Solaris BlueRaven. My wonderful guest tonight, I'm very, very happy to have on board, is Jason Gleaves. And Jason, it's just wonderful to have you on tonight. And you know what comes to mind? I was thinking about the Phoenix Lights, but those were, that was 1997 with the Black Triangle, though, right?
Yeah, that was quite a large craft, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I'm wondering if there was any correlation. I know we were talking about the black triangles, and I was thinking about that and how that was a big impact psychologically to people, too. I mean, they just, to this day.
Yeah, a lot of people saw that. Was it 20,000 people plus?
It seems like it. Yeah, I just think that there's obviously a reason when they want to show these things, they do show them. So it's very, very interesting. And most of the time, it's kind of like stealth and, very, very quiet about a lot of things. What do you think the method of propulsion is for these vehicles?
It's obviously something far advanced that we know of, and you've theorized it more to anti-gravity type of craft.
Yeah.
So you're going into the realms of definitely technology. This is advanced. We've got jet engines and we use oil, gas, etc. So yeah, it's obviously free energy of some type.
It certainly seems that way. And once again, I think that if we would just unleash all this stuff and go in that direction and stay there, I think we'd have a better world. But that's just me.
Me too.
It's just become so contorted right now. Everything seems like, I always say it's inverted because it feels that way. But yeah, that's very, very interesting with those. And so the signature alone on the other craft that you were talking about with your area, did it have any type of noise of any kind?
I think it was described just having a low hum. So that's the only description, really. But then that's quite another thing that is recognised with other people that have seen craft of similar shape, size, etc. There's been a low hum to it. A lot of the time, people say they're quiet as well. I get people that contact me again with footage and photographs and said that they see aircraft or objects. But again, if they're military, even conventional craft now, a good example, people when they go to air shows and they see the fast jets of today, the way they fly over, you don't actually hear the sound of the aircraft until it's actually passed over you and gone. That's when you'll get the afterburners, etc. The same thing will be in the distance. You wouldn't actually hear the jet or anything because of the distance, or it would take time to get to you, etc. So, again, but the black covert craft, etc. Again, there probably wouldn't be any sound.
Yeah, that makes sense right there. I keep thinking of the hum. They talk about, we have a hum now, actually. There's a Colorado, there's one in Denver hum. But that low frequency, that droning sound, and I don't know if you correlate it with anything yourself or if you've ever thought about that, but what that could cause that, or whether it's, boring underground or something else going on. I'm always curious because it seems to be getting worse. And even in Colorado, we're noticing more and more of that, going on. So I'm wondering if there's something happening there. Do you get that where you are? Do you get a kind of an ultra low frequency hum in your location?
Well, you can get strange noise, but where I live, it's next to an oil refinery, which is Ellesmere Port, and you get all kinds of funny noises coming from there. So, but I do live right directly underneath the flight path for Liverpool Airport and Manchester, so I get aircraft all the time flying over, day and night. So
air pollution.
Yeah, it becomes second. You don't really hear it because it's become second nature. But again, another thing with the humming sound, a lot of people contacted me, and myself included in this. We get the ringing in the ears where people, coming forward saying they're getting this distinct ring in ears. Now, whether it's related to tinnitus, the medical condition, I don't know. But I've had it for years, and especially it becomes more profound when I speak to people like yourself, like it's ringing now. I've got ringing.
I'm so sorry. It might be my antenna bothering you, and I apologize if that's happening.
But if I speak to anybody, related to it, it comes out. And
is that right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not going to give you a headache. I don't know if I affect people like that or not, but I do know, because I'm kind of a transmitter, so I don't know what I do to people.
No.
I'm hoping I don't bother your ears. But again, that's just a confirmation.
But going back to headaches, I go through fits of having headaches and nosebleeds and things like that. But
really,
going back when I was younger, I'd have really, really bad headaches, migraines, and they were always on the same day. And then, it'd make you really ill as a child, and then you'd be fine,
Very interesting. Well, yeah. You certainly sound like a contactee, abductee, whatever you want to call it. But I know they like to call themselves experiencers now, but I call them contactees still. But what about implants? Do you ever think you might have some?
Yeah, like anybody else, I think, there probably is some. I've never had a scan of any kind, so I wouldn't know. But, I wouldn't rule anything out. And again, you go back to people, is it like Dr. Lear, who was actually extracting them from people?
Yeah. And then Steve Colburn, who I know very well because he's done my implant analysis scan. Yeah, definitely. I think people should get that done if they have any concerns whatsoever, just to have validation. It's nice to know. Yeah. And also you can troubleshoot your body. I mean, we have to become our own doctors and scientists sometimes. You can't go to a regular doctor with this stuff. I mean, it's exotic technology to some degree, or it's classified, and you have to be very careful. That's the bottom line. But now it's becoming more the norm. People are starting to get calibrated to the information, so it's not so unusual. But we still need to address it and figure out what we're going to do with this. How is it going to get moderated or, regulated, I guess is the word.
And again, you don't know what the implant, its actual true meaning for it being in your body. Is it an enhancement? Is it something that's going to cause you problems? Is it a tracker? It could be anything.
All of the above and below. And it's multi-layered. That's the thing. It also alters the DNA from what my observation has been. It can do all sorts of stuff and transmit, receive data. Psy-Wars, Psy-Spy. You definitely could be a Psy-Spy with the technology interface. Synthetic telepathy is the way to go in covert military. I mean, if they're not using it, I can't imagine why they're not, because I know it works, and you probably know it works too. I mean, you literally cannot function in some kind of a top secret operation without this type of a warfare program going. In my opinion, they need to be interfaced. So I think that's what it is. And also, the transhumanism is kind of like the soft disclosure of this technology. But I think it has multi-purpose. But I also think it can be very dangerous. And it can also, we really don't know, like I said, over the years since my induction was 2004. And now we're 2018. And I've noticed some things that are going on that my body's having a hard time with. So, and they can weaponize it too. So, I mean, they can do some things to make you miserable. As you know, we touched on this off air with a friend of yours.
Yeah. So, and again, it's like you say, it's touch. It's not really touching. It's probably more into going towards the super soldier type thing. So again, people will probably look at that and hear it for the first time and say, super soldier, what are you talking about? And again, goes back to Hollywood. They had films out. Is it Universal Soldier?
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. That's
Well, when you can interface like this on the battlefield, it's phenomenal. I mean, if you can be interconnected with technology that's your live feed real time with communications and operations, and you don't need a headset and a radio, this is what they're looking for, and this does work. It works very, very well. So, that's the boots on the ground super soldier. Plus, they can boot up your DNA, boost your immune system. They can do all sorts of wonderful things.
Yeah.
Plus, they can. Well, the sad part of it is they can brainwash you and train you and create screen memories and things like that too. So it is a mind control program, and it can be deployed as one. But I mean, I know the pros and cons of it. I know I should probably in those divisions. I could troubleshoot everything now, but it is what it is, and I think that it should be used at the highest level of what I call a balance. You can't corrupt this stuff, and it has been corrupted. And bringing in regular civilians, I just don't understand, Jason. I'm trying to figure out why don't they just do it on their personnel, but they always bring in people who are maybe extra psychic or gifted in some way, and then they want to pull them into these projects. So
they're probably looking for the best solution to everything, aren't they? So cover all bases.
Right. I mean, even contactee experiences. There's no such thing as coincidence, in my opinion. It's pre-selection to some degree.
Yeah.
And you have to ask at what point in the continuum did this start? Did it start with your family? Now, that's another thing I was going to ask you. You did mention it wasn't your dad that had an experience?
Yeah. Well, my father's ex-military himself, and he's not the guy to really talk about this type of thing, and it's only since I've got more into the actual, with the Facebook page and writing for magazines and become more apparent, he sort of said, oh yeah, I had he's probably got more experiences that have happened to himself, and he might talk about it, but this took a long time to get from him properly, all the details. But when he was younger, in Liverpool, he's from Liverpool too. This is in the 1950s ish, sort of that time period, and he was only a young boy. And this was obviously before TV was everywhere. So my nan and uncle were in the front room of the house he lived in Liverpool, listening to the radio like everybody else did. And he was playing in the hallway. This is in an evening time. And so he'd have all his toys like everyone and be running in and out of the front room and back and forth and playing. And he said he came into the hallway and looked up, and he said there was a tall figure of a man, he thought was a man, was standing, and had just come through the front door, walked through the front door, the closed front door.
Wow.
Literally, and stood there at the end, at the bottom of the stairs, and actually beckoned him to go upstairs. And obviously he got panicked at the time, turned round and ran back into the living room where my relatives were, and then peered around. This guy was still there and beckoned him, and then went up the stairs. But over time, I've spoken more with him and got details, and I said, well, what was he actually wearing? Long story short, he actually said the person was a male, wearing like a black suit with a trilby hat.
Very
so
interesting.
Then that goes again back to the Men in Black, doesn't it? It goes down that. So I said to him, you probably sound like you've had a Man in Black, experience. And again, that's new to him.
Really? Very interesting. Well, that seems hereditary almost too. It's like you've been tracked all along. And what do you think the MIBs are, in your opinion? I mean, nowadays they want to call them the spooks, like the Fed, where I come from over here. But I mean, to me, the MIBs were way different. They were like almost like interdimensional or hybrids of some kind. What is your interpretation?
Again, I, like anybody else, I've researched into it. I watch so many YouTube videos and, research on the internet. And again, people have seen all kinds of different types of Men in Black. And again, Hollywood have come out with the movies, and, maybe it is a lot down that road, but, you go further in and the actual event, people have seen the black-eyed children that come and knocking on the doors. They see tall, thin Men in Black. They see people that look, when you look at their face, they said that they're pasty. They've got no colour to their face. They basically look like a dead person standing in front of them. And again, they always seem to say the same thing to them. It's related to a sighting, an experience that's happened, and they're either getting a friendly warning or a stern warning to don't continue with what they're doing, researching into it or talking about it, etc. And again, when they're confronted by this type of person or entity or whatever you want to call it, when they've come round after the event of being told not to carry on and being threatened, they will follow up and look to see where the people have gone or person, and they've disappeared, or they've come in an old like a Chevy type car, which is out of place to what is around them. It's either out of date car, but it's immaculate, and then again the car's disappeared and never seen again.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I have on my grandmother's side, she had people that were like shadow. See, they weren't like interdimensionals or anything, but they were like covert, whatever they were back in the day. They used to follow her because she used to douse and find oil for people and never charged anybody. And I guess she had a very interesting gift they were very interested in. Plus, they were connected to the Masons, high Masons too. But there was some interesting stuff. I mean, so once they start that, it seems to me like they keep the perpetual motion, with the family and the children and the grandchildren. So that's interesting that he had that experience. You know, some people call him the Hat Man too. I know that's been coming out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Again, there's so many descriptions for these type of people.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It must be quite frightening to a lot of people, and that's the intent, isn't it?
Right. It is. Caution. Yeah. Well, you know, when I was at the what was the Mind Control Summit, I remember, and I touched on this on one of the shows not too long ago. I was walking to my hotel room and I saw shadows to the wall. It wasn't my shadow. There wasn't anybody with me. It wasn't lighting. There were two shadows following me. And that was the first time I've ever seen anything like that before. They were like shadows, like I could see them following me. But that was the night supposedly everybody had something weird happen to them, and I just went to sleep. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's one of those. It's again, people contact me with their stories, experiences, and shadow people again. Yeah. You know, and they see the shadow. You know, you're watching TV or you'll be doing something, reading a book, and out the corner of your eye you'll see something. You know, and you look twice like you do, and there's nothing there. But is it interdimensional? Is it, you know, you've just caught something, you know, because you're awakened to it, you know? Yeah.
Well, we're antennas anyways, and our peripheral vision, we do pick up on things, in my opinion, anyway. Yeah. I think people are very, very psychic, even when they don't want to be. Even animals are. I mean, cats in general, and dogs. And I'm sure your animals probably pick up on things. I'm sure you can probably tell me some stories.
Yeah, you have my two dogs, like the line at the side of me now, actually. I can go out and I see ships and craft as well at night. I go out into my garden and I can be out there and it's pitch black and I'll sit there and be looking at the stars. Obviously, the UK weather is a bit unpredictable, so when it's cloudy, you don't really see an awful lot. But when in the summertime, when it's nice and clear and you see stars and things like that, and I can be out there, and next minute my dogs will be just looking up in the sky, and there's nothing there that I can visibly see, but I know something's there because they're looking up at it. You know, the dogs don't just sit there and look. I mean, they look at birds and things like that, but you know, I look up the same area of space and I can't see anything straight away. You know, so
yeah, they have those radar ears too, very sensitive. Yeah, my dog's like that too. He's very, very sensitive to energy. Yeah, I was going to ask you if has the UFO activity slowed down in your area over there at all?
I would say it's picked up.
It's picked up. Okay.
Yeah, I would think more people. Again, more people seem to be coming to me with orb photographs, and again, I see quite a few orbs as well, and the amount of people that send me photographs with orbs in them. Now, whether the specks are dust, insects, again, you know, there are a lot of theories to it, but then, you know, there's an awful lot of people seeing these things, and the new digital cameras do actually pick things up like that. But before, when the old 35mm type camera wouldn't pick that type of thing up as easy.
Right.
But I definitely say it's increasing, and anyone can see these craft. I mean, you only have to go outside and literally look up and just ask to see them, and they seem to appear. Yeah, it's really strange.
It's very, very interesting. You know, I'm gonna have to send you a picture, and I never mentioned this to people before, but I when I was on Maui, this was after my induction, I had a disposable Polaroid camera. You remember those? You can just buy at the store. Well, I actually had one, and I took pictures everywhere. And I noticed that when I was in Iao Valley on Maui, there was these interesting, like, I don't know what they are. I'll have to send them to you. It looks like a white orb, but it's like really solid. I mean, it's like a mist, but it's not mist. It's like you can see there's something there. I'll send it over to you and see what you think.
Certainly,
because this is a natural photograph. I mean, it's just a Polaroid. It wasn't anything spectacular. I took it, you know. So there's nothing there.
Interesting to see those.
Yeah, I mean, to me, because that was right after the induction too. We're talking probably the first 2 years after I was induction. I think there was a lot of activity around me. So I'll definitely send it over to you and see what you think.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered about that photograph. I didn't notice until years later, and I looked at it. I was like, "What is that?" You know, in the sky there.
A lot of people don't. That's the thing. You know, they take photographs of scenery and other things like that, and then later on, when they look back at the photograph, they see something and they go, I didn't see that at the time.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't there. It was obviously cloaked or, you know, some sort of camouflage on it. I mean, also, again, going back to that side, a lot of people they're sending me photographs of clouds, but you can see the craft within the clouds. And especially when rainbows, I've had quite a few rainbow ones lately where people have sent obviously a beautiful rainbow and they're lovely, colourful photographs, but you can pick up a lot of objects around. And also there's one I actually took myself over Chester, which is in the north of England up here. And it wasn't of a rainbow as such, but it was a cloud was all colourful and like a rainbow. But when I actually analysed it myself and went in, there was a craft in there. So whether they're affecting clouds and, you know, the weather around it, again, I don't know, but, you know, it's all interesting.
It is very interesting. Well, you know, it's like a saturated airspace, and we get back to those chemtrails again, which is cloaking everything around us. I mean, we're getting so much of a screen that it's anything could be kind of surfacing in and out of dimensional space, in my opinion. Yeah. It's really, really interesting. And I would imagine that happens with our oceans too, although it's probably not as obvious.
No, because, you know, a lot of the oceans are undiscovered, isn't it? So it's the ideal place for bases, if you think about it logically.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think where there's a lot more there. I always wanted to drain. I always like to visualize the draining of the entire oceans to see, you know, exactly what we're dealing with. But I have an interesting fantasy.
You'd be surprised what you find.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, all sorts of stuff there. Well, I know earlier you touched on the underground bases, and what is your impression of? You mentioned that I know that a lot of people talk about the underground bases being the military is kind of taking over what was there initially, or maybe even expanded on the underground. Is that a correlation? Do you think at all, or something very different?
I think they're working with extraterrestrials. Again, which type? I don't know, because again, you can go into so many different types of extraterrestrial. I say extraterrestrial, you know, they're just from a different place, not here. Whether they've lived here already, and you got the greys, and again, there are so many different types of grey. And the small grey that people generally see are just like an android type, you know, like a synthetic android.
Right.
They're like the minions of the the ET world. And then you've got Palladians, where people see the Nordic like people with the blonde hair, long blonde hair, and again you've got obviously the mantid types. Then you've got the reptilian. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Right. And isn't it interesting how not everybody, but a lot of people, they have actually share the same visual. In other words, it's like a hive collective dream pool where they're all interconnected into this one fabric of seeing this one particular type of species. I'm not saying everybody does, but I've noticed that there's a pattern with that with certain people that are abductees or contactees, that they all see a certain kind of gray, or this one or that one or the mantis. And it seems to me like this is a collective of some kind of people that are actually all interconnected. I don't know what your perception is. Again,
that could be, you know, true and linked in some form. I mean, I've got a friend in the UK here, a ufologist. He's been in the field for quite a few years, Robert Holtz. And a few years ago, I had a good chat with him. Again, he's had experiences and things like that. And again, he said, again, when he was a young boy, he's had a lot of missing time with his sister, where they went disappeared for 4 hours, and they had search parties looking for these, you know, him and his sister, and then they just turned up again. But going into that side where you were saying about what, again, I believe a lot of races can actually project an image to the person. Now, whether it's through thought, etc., that way, that is, they can project an image of something or a character that would be soothing to that person during an experience. And he said when he had experiences as a young boy, he used to have a tall elephant used to walk in the room.
Wow.
And he puts that down to, and I do really as well, that he was into zoos and animals. So whether they were picking up from, you know, what something that would be pleasant to him, you know, not scary to see,
Reading thoughts, reading the emotions, reading the memory.
Yeah, and again, another friend of mine, Tony Toppin in the UK, I've done a lot of stuff for him in ufology with analysing footage, and he's got some really good sightings himself. And again, he said similar thing to me a while ago. When he was young, he can remember elephants running through the wall.
Wow.
So again, they're going back to that sort of... It's sort of my lab type of thing, isn't it? Yes, it's sort of the way they're trying to put themselves across.
Yeah, it's almost like we're dealing with an interactive hologram, and yet it's been weaponized with maybe a formula of psychotronics if they want to influence a target. But that depends on if it's a real, innocent kind of experience with an off-world species, or if it's something with more covert intelligence. That's just me. That's the way I'd see it anyway. So you have to kind of break it down. But I still think it's a mind game to some degree, and people have to be very clear in what they're seeing. But when they're children, that's pure energy, pure light. And usually it sounds to me like it's interactive in reading their minds and creating that manifestation for them to be calm so they can either control them, program them, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. And of course, did they ever say if their experiences were positive? Were they afraid? Did they feel like they were negative experiences at all? Or
no, both people in those examples both said they had pleasant experiences, where they were given knowledge and told what's going to happen, and things like that. And
that's good.
So, yeah, you've got to look at it also. If you put yourself in the ET's shoes, if you were doing that type of work, if you call it abductions, but people say there's nice and there's not so nice abductions. But if you were an ET coming, I would do the same thing. I would put a thought into their head so they didn't get distressed or disturbed by what they were seeing.
Right, try to calm them down a little bit. Well, I can tell you, usually, just my own perception is that an off-world species usually is not as aggressive as covert military. They're a little more intense.
Yeah.
And they can be very nasty. And from what my experience with what I went through, that wasn't very nice. No. So, and it definitely wasn't on off-worlder. Off-worlders don't act like that. It's definitely warfare.
It's all agendas, isn't it?
And the more you don't comply with what they want, the more intense they become. So. Yeah. That's like, it's very, very interesting. Yeah. Well, it's amazing on so many different levels. And of course, I still believe that there's a war on consciousness and that it's really about our state of consciousness. And when we go to the higher levels of consciousness and we can see through everything, that's when the threat becomes real for them, for these people in these undergrounds. So, because then we can see the veil, we can see behind everything, and we can tear down the whole, the false matrix. So then we have clarity and there's no more controller. That's what I see anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it's all going afoot, Have you ever had any experiences with the moon? I mean, insofar as imagery goes or any type of memory?
Not really. Obviously, I've got a telescope myself, and I'll look at the moon. And people have come up with, different theories and, of what they believe is happening, where we're living in a matrix. And you're going back to David Icke, that type of work. Again, I follow. I'll watch everything on the internet, and I'll read as much as I can and research as much as I can. And generally, I find when I'm looking into a particular subject, you might end up going to a dead end as such, where you don't really come out knowing any more, any less than when you went in. But I do generally find that if I'm going down one particular avenue of research, it'll open up another 5 doors. Yep, I
agree.
And then it just you can have you'll have like a notepad, and it'll be 5 extra pages of I better go down that road. I better look down this way. And yeah,
it's really interesting, especially if you have experience of some kind. Then you can really look at it from a different angle and assess things from a very, very different perspective. But I know there's a lot of people that claim to have seen images of black triangles supposedly around the moon, and that's something.
Yeah, whether there's a base up there. I believe there's a base on the far side. They call it the dark side, but it's not dark. It's just on the far side. But I believe there's something up there. I found buildings as well, but I don't just do UFOs. I've also looked at Mars and, you know, other places, you know, obviously with the Mars thing, and especially it's Richard Hoagland going down that way.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, a lot of people, you generally find there are certain people that will look into certain avenues. So obviously, you know, Richard, and he's been going a long time with lectures, so there's a lot of information out there for everyone to follow and have a look. And then if you really need to go and look at case files, you know, you got John Greenwald, is it the Black Vault?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. You know, so there are people in all different, you know, disciplines of ufology where you can go and find out some really good information.
Right, and usually there's a pattern or a correlation at some point. At some point, there's something that triggers everything else. That's a chain reaction of information. So that's, I think, what we're looking for, the sequences that connect. You know, some of it's crap, excuse my French, but some of it's not very good. And then there's a part of it that we can look at and say, well, this we can work with, and this we can work with, and take those pieces and make the connection. Yeah.
You know, it's again, it goes back when I get photographs sent to me or images, and I call them the hello photograph, where I'll sit up and I think, oh, that looked interesting. You know, it looks a bit more than your general, where you think, oh, maybe that's an aircraft. You know, you think it's beyond that at all. But then I get footage as well where I've researched, where in the book as well, there's one where there's an Argentinian pilot. And you can actually see the original footage on my YouTube channel, which is just called UFO Only, the same thing. But the footage is on there, and it's actually taken on, it was civilian Argentinian pilot. I think it was in 2016. And he'd actually had encounters with craft before in his aircraft as he was flying. So, but he didn't have a camera or anything at the time to capture it. So he took his mobile phone up with him, and that's why the footage is long. You know, like when you take a video on your phone, it comes out not landscape, it comes out in the horizontal. When you analyze it, you can actually watch it. It's still one of my favorites, really, mainly because it's aircraft and stuff. But and he's flying along, and it's whether he knew he was going to see some more craft, so he took his phone, and he did. And the video's only short, and he's flying. You can see the propeller out of his front windscreen. You know, it's going round in front of him, and the cloud base, and he's about maybe 5,000 feet ish up. So he's actually flying through the clouds, and two objects appear on his left-hand side. And they dart right in front of his aircraft. I mean, dangerously close, right in front of him. And one is elongated, sort of disc shape, but it's mainly elongated, long, and it flies right in front of his aircraft. And then it's followed within a second or so behind by a smaller craft. And then what they do, they actually fly to the right-hand side of his craft, which I wish he'd actually followed it, but he didn't. He's still looking forwards with his camera, and they actually come back in formation and buzz right in front of his aircraft again. But if you go on the site, you can actually see the actual footage, but there are photographs in the book as well.
Right, excellent. And also I encourage people to check out your YouTube channel. I know it's pretty cool. I did too. And it's very, very interesting. And with our technology today, I can't see how anything could escape us insofar as capturing images go, because we have so many different types of covert technologies, even with our Air Force, and even the satellites that can zoom in. You know, how can anything be, you know, avoided insofar as capturing images go? I guess it just depends on what they want to show everybody.
Yeah, it's what they want to show, what they've captured, obviously, which I believe they've got some really good footage of. You know, craft that they don't know the origin of. Again, and you go back to the release of this new footage from the To the Stars Academy, Tom DeLonge and things.
What is your impression of all that? Seriously.
I'm not impressed.
Not either.
With the footage. And one of the actual, I think there's 3 videos up to now. I think there's 19 or whatever in total that are going to be coming out. But one of the actual pieces of footage I actually analysed quite a few years ago and didn't realise till I'd gone back over it. And it's gun footage, the same that everybody else has seen. And the craft, whether the pilot has identified it or not, I don't know. I just think it's very strange. I mean, there was another thing I picked up on. Within the footage, if you look at the head-up display, it's got all his readings on his head-up display. Down the right-hand side, it actually says slave. And to me, in military terms, slave is another word for drone.
Very interesting.
So I don't know. I'm like most people. I'm still a bit. I'm waiting for the next one. I think they could have brought out better footage.
I agree. Well, I think it's a distraction once again. I question an awful lot with that whole scenario. So we'll see. And then the idea of the Pentagon being involved is always a red flag for me.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's what I was sort of going down. It's all drip, drip, drip. That type of thing. And
it's a distraction. And why now? My point is also why now is all this stuff happening? Is it just money? Is it a distraction? There's something else happening, and they want everybody to look that way.
Yeah, it always seems to be money and power and things that,
Right, and also having some talking heads wanting to control the whole narrative behind the disclosure or UFOs or whatever else is going on. So
yeah,
and they have to incorporate mind control with that because, like I touched on, that's an integral part of this whole network.
Yeah, through media and TV and subliminal type of things. It's all mind controlled to the masses, and you go back to the drip, drip, drip with feed of information. You've got the Vatican where they actually said not long ago, the Pope, where he would baptize an extraterrestrial,
right.
And the Vatican also have 2 telescopes. Why would they have 2 telescopes?
Yeah, no, I definitely smell a rat with them. There's no doubt about that. And also it'd be like, the off-worlders will baptize them. Trust me. I don't think they want the Vatican's dirty hands on an off-worlder that's clear in energy and consciousness. Oh, right. It just amazes me. I'm sorry, I know I'm getting jaded here, but it's you look at all the deception that's going on in these orchestrated areas in the name of their God and the illusion of they do so many insidious things and wear that mask, and yet they want to control and manipulate everything. And once again, that's manipulating the narrative because that's exactly what they're trying to do. They have an awful lot of money to invest in a lot of technologies, right down to electronic interface with what I call the synthetic telepathy that actually can simulate a possession. So we call it electronic possession. So that's another thing. They're getting all their quote unquote priests back. Well, I guess they're all getting calibrated to be exorcists. That's great. But when you look at the technology we're capable of deploying onto a target, we can make them look possessed. Believe me, they can look like they're like out of a movie, and that will be all interface. And they are behind some of that. So we have to expose that. And this is why I know I'm the one out there exposing it because I don't have anything to lose. And I've been interfaced with technology, and I can call it, and I will call it. And that's just probably something most people don't realize is that it's not just about demon possession and this and that. There's a technological overlay that can interface onto a target that makes them look possessed. And that's the electronic possession.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got all kinds of weird going on here. And, the more we just get clear with it, the better off we're all going to be because otherwise everybody's just going to surrender to this lie and be manipulated by it. So I don't know about you, but I don't like being lied to and I don't like manipulation. And I love technology if everybody just kind of step up to the higher levels with it.
Yeah, it's just for the better of mankind in general, and nobody likes to be lied to.
No, it's just ridiculous. There's no point in doing it. Actually, it's one of these things where it just becomes a Pandora's box out of control. Once they start with one, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I understand for warfare purposes how they keep things classified, but it's getting leaked out. Seriously, I mean, if they don't want this stuff to go out there, then they shouldn't be deploying it on people who they know won't put up with it. First of all, like I can use myself as an example. Yeah. So, if they want to keep it really hidden, don't put it out there. Don't float your triangles down, wherever. It's like they're parading them.
They've done a good job of it for how many years now of keeping it, disclosed, and then why all of a sudden are they? Have they been forced to? I
think so. I think they've lost control. Why? Because there are many of us who have been on the front lines of communicating the truth, and it's bleeding through. It's rifting through to the mainstream, and now they have no choice but to take over the narrative. And that's what you're seeing with some of these guys, like in my opinion, like DeLong, for example. I think they're trying to take over the narrative because we're in control and we have information, and they want to make sure they control the information. They'll look over here, don't listen to her, don't listen to them, look over here, and that's BS. And I know that from my own personal experiences. My DVD was shoved under the carpet, and it's 100% accurate. You know, people don't want to hear the truth, or it's getting skewed and airbrushed and sanitized. So I think eventually all this stuff is going to come out, because that's the universal flow of consciousness. Is we have to just open it up for people to understand that where the truth lies. And shame on those people who have been lying to us and deceiving. They're not doing themselves, their families, their futures any benefit whatsoever.
No, I do wonder about those sort of people who've kept it disclosed for so long and you know, lived and being paid to do it. You know, and I just think to myself, you know, disclosure's coming. It's definitely coming. But when it comes, people are still, you know, not sure, but, you know, and how it comes. But when it does come, I do think to myself, those people have kept it from everybody. They've lived the lie, you know, gone along with it. And for what? And afterwards, when it, you know, people know the truth, how are they going to adapt? How are they going to be looked at, not, you know, unfavorably to, you know? Right.
Well, we're the disclosure. There's no doubt about that. And when it comes down to the bigger disclosure, being forced, you know, forcing them to actually communicate, I think that there's going to be a lot of people ticked off. And the bottom line is, the biggest problem I have is that a lot of people have been murdered because of these projects, or bullied into silence, whether they've been put away, locked away, tortured, or murdered. And that is something that needs to be looked at. I mean, the warfare program alone and the type of things they can do to people, unbelievable. So that's another avenue altogether. So once you open up the UFO area and the exotic technologies, well, then you look at the other methods and say, well, wait a minute. Now we have interconnection with psychotronic weapons and this and that. And look what it can do to somebody. Yes, it can upgrade them, but look at the other downside of it. So we have a big, big monster out of control. I think that they understand very clearly that there's accountability. And I don't know how that's going to roll, to be honest with you, Jason. I don't know. I don't know if these guys will be accountable.
That's the thing. That is the thing that we don't know how it's going to roll. And, you know, the one thing clear, everybody in this field wants disclosure. That's the whole point of everyone being in it and talking about their experiences, regardless of what type it is, what they've seen. You know, the general people are waking up, and they're waking up fast.
They really are. Yeah, their DNA is being activated, whether they like it or not. And a lot of that comes down, you know, to what I call the starseed heritage, the celestial heritage, which I'm a firm believer in. And I think that's really the key to our evolution and ascension, is to acknowledge who we really are as multidimensional, spiritual, celestial, whatever we want to call us, star people, and learn from that benchmark, and not be afraid of who we really are, and instead of people trying to cover us up, and that's no good. So, I appreciate that.
Well, you got all the people that actually contact me as well, and they generally say the same thing. You know, I've never had any contact with this person before. They've not spoken to anybody else I've spoken to in regard to experiences, and they're saying the same things, you know, and you just think you're a starseed, you know, it's coming through, you know, and instead of being treated like they're insane or something like that, even people with abilities, I mean, the idea of our DNA activating is to release these abilities, whether it's clairvoyant or clairaudient, clairsentient, you know, whatever abilities people have, they will be activated. But what I've seen is that they're getting access. These people are getting remotely accessed by covert intelligence programs to be extracted for data. You know, so in other words, what do they know? And then, of course, it gets weaponized. I mean, there's this thing that goes on where once you start reaching certain levels of consciousness and awakening, there's something that wants to intercept that information so they can control everything and manipulate the person that has access. So that's going on and on and on. I don't know how much longer they can continue that. And I think that that's something we're looking at here. But there's a war going on, you know, you've seen it. You know, there's a psychological war and technological war and a spiritual war. So I love the work you do, and I'm so glad you're out there, and I applaud you for your book. I mean, I think it's fantastic. Have you received any feedback yet from your book going live? Yeah, I've got a lot of positive feedback.
Very nice.
People enjoying, you know, like, you know, with it being a basic layman term book, it's easier for people to read and go through in that respect. And people like to see UFO photographs. They always do. Especially some of the cases I've gone over. You go over the battle over Los Angeles, and you're familiar with that photograph that everybody sees. But when I actually analysed the photograph on that, I was amazed by the detail I actually got out of the craft. Because when I first saw it, like everybody else, I thought it was a diamond sort of shaped craft. But when you actually look at the detailed analysed photographs, say enhanced, there's a lot of detail in it,
Right, and most people don't pay attention to that, or they haven't analysed it the way you have.
No.
Plus, you know what to look for. Once again, it's that expertise in the background of where you come from. So that really does pay off on a lot of different levels. But so, what is your analysis of that whole incident? Do you think that was a reverse engineered craft from the Nazis or something else?
No, I think that was an extraterrestrial craft, because that sighting occurred, I think it was 3 months after America had just joined the Second World War. And people probably assumed at the time that it was a Japanese or a Luftwaffe craft of some description. But they fired over 1,400 shells at this thing, and it was moving slowly. They didn't bring it down, and to this day, it's still unknown. So I do believe that was an actual extraterrestrial craft.
That's very, very interesting. And what's your impression of? I've always been fascinated by the Foo Fighters. What do you think about those?
Yeah, again, anything to do with warfare, etc. I'm sure off-world beings are interested, are fascinated. I do believe a lot of craft visit the Earth, off-world from other dimensions, etc. You can go anywhere with that, and they visit the Earth because we're basically like a zoo. And
it is.
Like we go to the zoo to see the elephants and the giraffes, etc. They're coming to see us, how we live, and barbaric ways mankind fight each other over nothing. And it must be fascinating to come and see something like this.
Well, I'll tell you what, it'd be like Nuke from orbit, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, but seriously, it's sad. It's very, very sad that after all these centuries, there's all this still going on. Even though people are awakening, the violence, the primordial behavior, it's still there.
Yeah.
When are they going to get it straight?
Yeah, and again, when disclosure comes, which again we said, it is going to come. You've got all the countries in the world, famine in Africa and things like that. It's not going to exist anymore. Everyone's going to be on the same playing field, the same level. It's all for the better.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what the problem was ever regarding how they have to control, manipulate the mass collective, but they should just let it go. They shouldn't have had all these control mechanisms put in place. So that is a problem. And there's when you entangle people's realities, there's a big accountability. Like I said, there's, you're talking a lineage of people and organizations and cabals and a lot of stuff that's gone on that's deliberately controlled and manipulated brainwave activity, belief systems, and evolution. That is something that they're accountable for, in my opinion. So that's something to look at, a lot of weird stuff, I'll tell you what. But yeah, I do like the Foo Fighters. I always thought they were, what comes to mind are like plasma drones, they were just so interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sorry. Well, with that question before, Foo Fighters, they want to see warfare. They want to see how things happen and follow aircraft. And again, pilots that saw these crafts, and called them Foo Fighters, they didn't know what they were, and they could be the ET equivalent to a drone that we're following just to keep an eye on what's happening. But it must have been amazing to see.
Yeah, I have relatives that fought in the World War II, and I don't know. I mean, I never talked to them, but I'm wondering. One was a Flying Tiger, and I'm under the impression that they might have encountered something like that. I don't know. One went 49 missions to Germany, and you have to ask yourself, because that was a lot of battle. So yeah. I'm assuming that maybe they encountered something, but I'll never know. They're not here anymore. They died, but it's very, very interesting. The history behind it's all those people that had those experiences with whatever species, whatever UFO, whatever it was, that didn't live long enough to give it to somebody else or show or give some kind of information, the legacy. That's what I'm looking at too, and that's why I think the lineage of the family is a big deal. If you can get it by, even if it's just storytelling, saying I went through this, or and sharing it with somebody else so they can document it, right?
It gets passed on, and it gets documented. Really becomes part of the rest of other similar experiences that are, events that have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the real database, if you ask me. Then that way it doesn't get contorted and twisted. Well, hopefully it doesn't. I mean, it can be like telephone too, where you tell somebody something, and by the time it gets down to some other ancestor, it's not even close to the truth. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting. And I know we have like 4 minutes plus or minus here. I tell you what, Jason, it's been wonderful to have you on. I hope to have you back.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'll have to have you on Hyperspace too, my other show over there at KCOR. So definitely have to get you on there. It's just such a pleasure to talk to you. I've been, I admire you too. So it's nice that you've been around in the shadows. I appreciate you being in my background, even though I didn't realize you were there.
No,
I mean, until you had your book go out, it was great. But it's, that's good. You're very stealth, and you have a lot of wonderful knowledge. So I hope people take advantage of that and look at your beautiful book. Also,
like I say to anybody, if I'm approachable, I can be contacted. And I'll always help. I'll never turn anybody away. I'll always help somebody out if they send me an image or they want an explanation, or I could try my best to help them. And if I don't know, I can certainly point them in the right direction.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And then once again, it's your benchmark too. You have a lot of excellent experience, and I appreciate that and respect who you are and where you come from too. So I applaud you for being in the military. So, we like to like our military personnel, whatever country they represent, bad guys. It's just I don't know. There's this contorted side, that's just the covert side that we have to keep an eye on once in a while. But I get it.
Yeah. Well, people like yourself that are giving the truth out of what's happening, have to applaud you as well.
Well, thank you. Well, I didn't want to just blow the whistle on everybody. I just had to communicate the truth and let people know that this is what the pro and con is. And for the rotten apples, basically, and get rid of the rotten apples. And then we have a great division. We have great groups of people out there, using technology with wisdom. Let's just get rid of the ones that don't respect the technology and shouldn't have access to it because of the way they're deploying it. That's my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll get cleaned up. And I don't know if you see that much corruption over where you are, but I think there's a little bit more of that weird going on over here. Not necessarily rogue groups, but spin-off organizations and things like that.
So. There's plenty of that going on.
Yeah, it's definitely. So if people want to get in touch with you, the best way to do that is how? On your website or Facebook?
You just get to me through Facebook, through my page, UF Only. But then I'm also on Twitter and Google Plus and all mediums. And I'm also on this new platform that's coming up on Stellar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I signed up for that, but it's confusing. I've got to get back in there. I don't know what I'm doing.
Once you actually play around with it a little bit, it becomes really apparent, and everyone that uses Facebook, Twitter and everything, it's very, very similar. It's not too difficult.
Okay, good. I started to sign up for it, and I was like, what is this thing? And I had to double check and make sure it wasn't some kind of a scam. So
no,
that's good.
It's I think it's the way forward.
Excellent. Well, I'll definitely be. So, do you friend people on there too, like you do on Facebook? Or no?
Exactly the same, and everyone's going on, and you can post what you want. There's no adverts and things like that, and no restrictions either. So, anyone that's putting stuff out there that where they're being taken down now on YouTube and things like that, you're probably quite safe on there.
Excellent. Well, I'm definitely going to go in there and pursue that. I'll friend you on there too, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
Stay in touch. There's no doubt about it. So once again, thank you so much, Jason. It's an honor and a pleasure to interview you, and I will have you back. There's no doubt about it. So, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know you did. And make sure you stay tuned for Shiny Side Out. I bet you they're just thrilled I'm back over here. Or maybe they got used to Mr. Rowe. I don't know. But stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Becky coming up next to sail you on into the night with their incredible show from Down Under, as they always do. I'm not sure what they're going to be discussing tonight, but I'm sure it will be very interesting. So everybody have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Jason, thank you so much, and best of luck with your new book.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed, people working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country is founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that, just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine